It, of course, is not really about debates, not even about votes. It's who counts the votes and whose votes count. In our first story tonight, Ohio Republican judges ruling on Ohio Republican lawsuits have given Ohio county officials a weapon with which to challenge as many as 200,000 votes from 200,000 new voters. And gee, who would that benefit? Here's a hint. John Kerry lost Ohio by 119,000 after more than 300,000 people were barred from voting in 2004. The new ruling, almost exclusively along party lines, including one judge whose husband is on the Republican ticket this year, agreed with the Ohio GOP, forcing Ohio's Democratic Secretary of State Jennifer Brunner to notify all county election boards if any voter registration info for the new voters is not matched by the Federal Social Security Administration or State Motor Vehicles Bureau. In other words, if some overworked data entry typist mistyped your license number, county officials can now use the challenge, or use that to challenge your right to vote if you're one of those hundreds of thousands of new voters registered in numbers that, surprise, favor Senator Obama. One Republican county prosecutor, former law partner of McCain's Ohio chair, is already investigating everyone who registered and voted during a 6-day window when Ohio let voters do both on the same day, even though he acknowledges not a single actual voting fraud accusation. Joining us now, my colleague, Rachel Maddow. Good evening, Rach.
Hi, Keith.
Ohio again, really?
Yes, it's Ohio, and it's also Montana, and it's Michigan, and it's Nevada. This is apparently the way that we do elections now. That the Republican Party decided, as a strategic partisan matter, that they would start trying to essentially manipulate state-level election laws so as to exclude as many people from the voting rolls as possible, so as to depress the number of votes that were counted, so as to inconvenience people for whom inconveniencing is, in a way that inconveniencing them would most likely kick out likely Democratic voters. The Republican Party made sort of a structural decision to do this years ago. And what happens every election season is that individual Democratic office holders, secretaries of state and other people responsible for elections, tend to resist and fight these battles. And Democrats sort of cluck over them and tut over them and worry about them. And the Democratic Party never decides to fight back as an institution the way the Republican Party decides to fight.
So is that the only solution to this?
Well, I think that election laws have been treated in a partisan way. And you can decide to be offended by that and say, no, election laws should be nonpartisan. Or you can recognize that a partisan fight is being waged and fight back. It's an ugly choice to have to make. But ultimately, if elections get stolen out from under you, you're never going to have the opportunity to take the moral high ground because you will have been kicked off it in an election that you lost through no fault of your own.
All right, flesh this out in terms of Ohio, in terms of the mechanics. What do we know about what's being done and what the Republican premise is here logically and logistically?
Well, about 666,000 new registrations have happened in Ohio since January 1st. And a federal court ruling has just come down which says that the Secretary of State needs to come up with a system by Friday by which county boards of elections can challenge the registration information or verify the registration information of those new voters. The Secretary of State in Ohio says that a preliminary check of those 666,000 registration says about 200,000 of them may have problems when checked against larger databases. That's not necessarily because they are fraudulent registrations. It's because you're checking voter registration information against the Social Security database or the motor vehicles database. And those sorts of matches are tough. It can be a typo. It can be having your apartment number or your middle initial involved there. Those exact matches often will put a flag on an otherwise obviously valid registration. If 200,000 people end up getting forced into the dodgy provisional ballot system or otherwise have their attempt to vote compromised, this could have a massive, massive effect on Ohio's election results.
All right. I don't want to diminish this, and obviously we'll follow it to the day of the election, as I know you will, but I must get your 45-second pregame take here. What do you not expect to happen tonight?
Well, I will say that what McCain has to do is obvious. And I think that you're very right to point out how awkward it's going to be to do that while seated at the same table as the man to whom we know he wants to throw all sorts of very sharp elbows. On the Obama side, it's more interesting. With McCain, it's just, will he do it or won't he? And how will it go? On the Obama side, if you are playing defense, you are losing. Obama does actually have to be on the offense, because 19 days is a long enough time to lose an election, even when you are 14 points out. And so Obama, if he just tries to maintain and doesn't go after McCain in any way, he will look like he's on defense, and he will lose this debate. He can't really afford to lose this debate.
And then again, he has not done that in either of the first two debates. So there's no, there's no. We didn't see a different Barack Obama than we saw in the primaries at any point during this debate process. So
complacency is the enemy for Obama at this point, though. Absolutely.
Haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Rachel Maddow, we will check back with you after the debate, of course.
Indeed. Thanks, Keith.